What's going on, guys? How you doing today? It's Angry Roleplayer, earning the morning as usual. And guys, today I want to present you the cool Spirit Barrage Legacy of Nightmares Barber build. And this is the build that's kind of, crazy on the Asian leaderboards, but it didn't really came from Asia because it was known well before, and we played it for God knows how many PTRs, and it never made it to the live server, but on PTR it kind of was always a crazy shit. And obviously if you saw my videos, you know that I've tested the barber shit in and out, and basically I created the first Legacy of Nightmares Spirit Barrage build on the fucking planet. It happened over a year ago when I created my Juicy Fire build that I called the Juicy Fire. It was the first ever build that used Spirit Barrage in the Legacy of Nightmares set, and I cleared 74 back then, and I used the Green Reaper and the Mimics, and the Ring of Happiness was just 100% multiply back then, and it worked pretty fine. But I didn't expect the setup to be viable once again. I think it was killed on the PTR, and I actually did the last test like a couple of months ago on PTR, and it did no damage. I struggled with 75, couldn't pass for 75. It was a fucking struggle. But then, thanks to the comments for my videos, I found out that someone found out the setup that works, and it works because of a bug, another bug in the game, guys, another bug. So basically, during the PTR, it was discovered that Zunimasa counts Spirit Barrage and specifically Phantasm that is given by the Gazing Demos as a pet. As a fucking pet, but it's retarded. And Blizzard fixed that, and since then Zunimasa doesn't buff the Spirit Barrage in any way, but they kind of overlooked the fact that Spirit Barrage is still buffed by the Ring of Emptiness first, then it is buffed by the Mask of Jerem, because Phantasm is still counted as a fucking pet. And also the Enforcer Gem, it also multiplies the damage of Spirit Barrage. This is kind of retarded, but it works. And I don't think it's entirely, the bad thing, because it's not an exploit and the damage is not out of place. It's absolutely decent, it's not groundbreaking, game breaking or whatever. It's a fun setup that works, absolutely, and it's the only second spellcaster build in the game right now that is viable, besides the fucking Firebats Arachyr build that is just through the fucking roof. So, the game lacks 100% spellcaster builds, and this build is a spellcaster, action-oriented, tough to play, very fragile, a lot of fun. So I hope that it will stay as this, even though it's a bug, might be fixed in the future, it might be dead and nerfed. But, like I said, Blizzard, if you watch this fucking video, this is not crazy, like, insane damage. So this is all in the safe territory to play. So just leave it as is, fucking let it work. But let's go of the build, guys. I made a few tweaks to the build because this build will be a little different from what you see on the leaderboards. I made a few tweaks because I know how this build worked before, and I know what's the potential of this build. I pretty much know everything about these setups because I tested it in and out even like fucking 2 years ago when the Ring of Emptiness was first introduced. So let's start with this. First of all, the helms are either each one of this, either the Mask of Jerem, which increases the pet damage by 100%, or the Green Reaper that gives us the Mimics. And Mimics will cast just Spirit Barrage when they come out, and they'll cast most of the skills like the Pyreneed and all that shit. And I explain why we have Mimics there later on. My Mask of Jerem is not very good for an ancient, but my Green Reaper is fucking perfect, so I use the Green Reaper here. The rolls should be int fit and hit chance. You can get Spirit Barrage roll here, but I don't really recommend it unless you have very high paragon and a fucking ton of toughness. This setup is fragile, it's very hard to survive. and you know, for me, like 90 plus is already a bit of a struggle. So first of all, you can use for the normal gems, you can use amethyst in the helm, amethyst in the chest and the pants, and you can also augment. If you have like very high paragon, you can augment vitality into your chest pieces instead of intelligence, and just use the rubies for the additional armor. This is what is rank 1 does currently. Okay, so everything with the helm. Okay, with the shoulders, it's a power of the Skeleton King, and you need ancient one like this. It basically gives us a little more toughness and extra toughness when we're not supposed to die. When we'll take fatal damage, but there's a chance that it will restore to maximum life and live a little longer. The roll should be int wit, life, and area damage. Area damage is fucking strong on this build, guys. Don't listen to whatever everything will say. Even though it was been somewhat discovered that the explosions from the Barber are not proccing the area damage. This is another bug, obviously. But even if it is intended and this explosion is a proc, and it doesn't proc area damage, it doesn't matter. We still cast Spirit Barrage a lot, and basically we need area damage. It's like can multiply all our damage we do to the mobs and overlap it over and over again. It's a ridiculous amount of damage, basically. So if you can get area damage on shoulders, it's fucking brilliant. As for the chest, it's a Killer's Cuirass, int wit and life. Reduced damage from elites also great, and it's absolutely fucking awesome to have the secondary as reduced damage from ranged attacks or melee attacks. This is also fucking great. The braces are Kumba's ornament, nothing else, with the cold, int wit and hit chance. Pants are Swampland Invaders with a cold, int wit, and all rest will be ideal here, or armor. Also 2 sockets with vitality gems here, guys. Absolutely impressive. On the boots, there's a couple of options here. Illusory boots are kind of the best of the best because it gives you the freedom of movement, and so you won't get stuck in the fucking corridors, won't get crowded and stuck inside the mobs, and basically this will save your life a lot. The rolls should be int wit, all res, and spirit barrage damage. This is one of the only free slots where you can roll Spirit Barrage damage on the boots, on the helm, and on the mojo as well. So Spirit Barrage is mandatory roll on your boots. Another good boots that can be used are the Boots of Disregard. Let me show you, they are here. The Boots of Disregard are not bad. 40k life regen is no joke at all when you stand, and you channel a lot and stand, so it's pretty cool. And another find is Ice Climbers. They are also decent, get you immunity to freeze and immobilize effects. It's not bad at all. As for the mojo, is Gazing Damage. Unfortunately, I'm still searching for the ancient one. You know, I just got back to live server and started farming shit again. You need ancient one, and the roll should be int wit, hit chance, preferably Spirit Barrage and area damage. This is like the fucking insane, roll that is perfect, absolutely perfect. You don't need regen life, this is like dog shit here. The Spirit Barrage, hit chance, area damage is fantastic. If you have mana regen, it really helps to fill your mana really fast. So I think it always rolls with mana regen, so you can roll it off if you are lucky. It's not bad at all. And on the secondary, you can have up to 50% increased Spirit Barrage damage from your Phantasm rune. This is quite a massive amount of damage. I calculated from 40 to 50, it gives you 13% more damage. So this is quite essential, guys. This is what you want to look for. Rings are both the Legacy of Nightmare set. Basically, it's crit damage, hit chance, and attack speed would be perfect here. Attack speed must have. We basically cast the spell ourselves, Spirit Barrage, and the faster we cast the fucking Spirit Barrage, the better. Absolutely. The more explosions we have, the more they expire and all of that shit. So attack speed is the top priority here instead of intelligence, and same here. Basically, attack speed, hit damage, and chance is what you need to aim for, guys. As for the amulet, is basically the Hellfire amulet with one of the useful passes that you see described in the build. There's plenty of useful passes, and I will go over them a little later. So basically, ideal roll here will be cold, hit damage and chance. If you have about 1000 intelligence, it's not that bad at all. You can keep it. As for the gloves, obviously it's the frost burns, and the frost burns increases the cold damage for your skills and gives a 50% chance to freeze enemies. It's actually pretty fucking awesome. They freeze over and over again, and the mimics also freeze that shit as well. And another interesting interaction with the freeze effect that no one really uses for now is you can also use Ancient Pathan Defenders, guys. Ancient Pathan Defenders. Like, for example, you can drop Green Reaper, wear Ancient Mask of Germ, and use Ancient Pathan Defenders in the cube. And potentially, in a huge density, when you freeze the enemies, you will get massive amount of damage reduction. Massive amount of damage reduction. For now, no one really uses that, but I think that might be somewhat like an option. Somewhat an option, guys. Weapon is the only one that we can use in the cold spec. It's a Sacred Harvester, and the roll should be area damage, intelligence, damage, or attack speed. Attack speed is also fantastic here. If you have attack speed, just leave it here. It's absolutely great because we need the more attack speed. I actually think about re-rolling this damage to attack speed as well. So basically, Sacred Harvester paired with Lakumba's Ornament, and the Soul Harvest gives us 10 stacks of Soul Harvest and gives us 30% more damage reduction with Lakumba's Ornament. So this is very important, guys, absolutely. In the cube, we have the Barber. This is why we deal all-out damage. Basically, when the Spirit Barrage and most importantly the Phantasm expires, it makes an explosion and it does pretty impressive amount of damage buffed through all of these gems and gear, and basically this is why we deal our damage. You can also switch back and forth with the Soul Harvester, by the way, if you have like absolutely insane Barber as well. Mask of Germ here in the Green Reaper, like I mentioned, if you just keep what is better. If you don't have the Ancient Green Reaper, but you have Ancient Mask of Germ, you can cube Leoric's Crown here and be fine as well. Absolutely fine, guys, absolutely fine. You can use Leoric's Crown here. Another interesting setup that can be used is you can use Enderil's Visage here as a helm instead of the Green Reaper as well, and cube the Mask of Germ. Enderil's Visage are always rolls with elemental damage, and if you have the Enderil's Visage with the cold damage, you can try and wear this one. This will be like, you know, 100% DPS setup, which is pretty cool as well. Absolutely viable, guys. As for the helm, as for the belt, you know, you will see a lot of setups like this where people use Witching Hour and cube the Belt of Transcendence here, but I don't personally recommend this. I personally recommend Mimics, but you can do it. You know, Witching Hour is a strong belt. It gives you around from 11 to 15% more damage, but drops your toughness a bit because, you know, it always rolls with just the wit and the rest is attack speed and hit damage. But the Belt of Transcendence can roll with life and all rest and give you much more toughness in this. And I prefer this setup for more toughness. I have over a fucking 1.5 million life and over 150% of toughness. So I prefer stacking more toughness for me just now. But you can switch this and use the Witching Hour and the Belt of Transcendence in the cube with the Mask of Germ on you. You know, this build is very flexible and depends on what you have actually, like what you have from the gear and what you can use then. Let me tell you what another options you might have. Okay, the ring is of course the Ring of Emptiness here that increases the all-out damage by 300%, increases the damage of phantasms as well by 300%. But for this, we need to affect the enemies by both Hound and Local Swarm, and this is why we have this here. This is why we have these skills here. This is like unswitchable. This is here for eternity. This is a must-have here. Another cool feature that not many players know that can be done is you can use the legacy items here. Like for example, I have the legacy Frostburns here. And what is this fucking legacy items I'm talking about? Legacy items they dropped like several patches ago, some years ago, and these are the old versions of the legendary items that were in the game before this. As you can see, it has the cold skill on the primary, and and then they moved it to the legendary power. So look here, I have cold damage with 54%, but let me show you what is happening. Now 53 because this is a bit low. This is 50% more damage, so I have 53% cold damage. Now I can go here and just use another pair of Frostburns, and look, 73%. So basically I got another 20% of cold damage. And if you have the legacy Frostburns, you can equip your ancient Mask of Jerem and just equip the legacy Frostburns and put another one in the cube and get 20% more cold damage. This is pretty fucking awesome. But for now, I absolutely prefer the Green Reapers, guys. Green Reaper, I think that is kind of more important. Let me get back to the Mask of Jerem. Okay, guys. Now, let's go over the skills, obviously. On the left button, Spirit, Barrage, Phlebotomize. You know, at first people ran with the Spirit is Willing, but this is kind of pointless when you have the mana regen on your Gazing Demise and you have the Rush of Pheasants passive, and you basically never run out of mana, right? Never. So Phlebotomize is what you need for the life, obviously. Life is all that matters, and recovery is all that matters, and how good you survive in the Rift. So this is your like only option, so the best one. You can actually run with the Manitou, but it is very, very passive damage, and explosions are very, very like uncontrollable. And you need to recast Manitou over and over again to proc the phantasms on top of the monsters. And I don't really recommend Manitou because it's completely passive and it does much less damage than the active setup with Phlebotomize or Spirit of Willings. I don't recommend Manitou. On the right button, Hound, Poison Spirit. Poison Spirit is a 20% global buff against the enemies, and you need to Hound with the Creeping Death passive. You only need to cast it once and forget, because it will last for 60 minutes. 60 minutes with Creeping Death. Without Creeping Death, you cast it and it expires over 12 seconds, so you need to recast it every 12 seconds. It's a bit of a mess, but it potentially can free up another passive for you, and I use this setup a lot. And overall, the setup that I describe here is a bit of, a safe and smooth setup. It can be altered and it can be played in a different way, more aggressive, more DPS, but here is a safe and smooth setup that is kind of is not frustrating to play. Now on the first button here is the Spirit Walk Healing Journey. This thing saved me a lot of time. And basically that replenishes 50% of your maximum life when you activate Spirit Walk. And when you refresh the Spirit Walk for the Graven Justice, you basically can spam it and stay and tank mobs inside the huge packs and still survive. This is absolutely fantastic tool for surviving. Now this is Soul Harvest Language, increases our armor by 10% for each harvested enemy, reduces the movement, and also it provides us with damage reduction stacks from Lakumba's Ornament and the more stacks from the Sacred Harvested. This is all our damage reduction, guys. Now Piranado, Piranha's Piranado is a 15% damage buff against the enemies. Also this is our control tool, and this is also the grouping skill. where we get all these packs inside. And also, funny thing is, mimics cast Pyronado, but they also group shit with Pyronado. It's an additional control on top of control that we provide. This is absolutely priceless grouping skill. Locust Swarm Pestilence. Now, I settle with Pestilence because I'm too lazy, you know, casting Locust Swarm over and over again on every fucking mob on the screen. This is so retarded. And Locust Swarm is a very, very expensive skill. It's 300 mana. This is a lot, guys. This is a lot. And you run out of mana like really fast with just, you know, free cast, and you're basically out of fucking mana. So, a lot of people will use Cloud of Insects to get a debuff on the enemies, but I personally recommend Pestilence for the lower levels when you have no problem surviving and you know what to do and you know you only need to do damage. I personally recommend Pestilence to save your time and basically to do more damage. On the top end, when survival is the only problem and we have like 4,000 paragons, of course Cloud of Insects might be better. But for me personally, I settled out with the Pestilence because it saved me a lot of time recasting shit. And it also saved me because I do not drop Achilles Cuirass, because I do not need to recast Locust Swarm a lot. So I always get the Achilles Cuirass buff on me as well. This is really good. Now for the extra skills, that can be different type of skills, guys, here, but these ones are really hard to drop for anything. Like for example, you can drop something like Pyronado for maybe Horrified Threatening Aspect for more armor, or the Zombie Dogs for the Leeching Beast to get more recovery, but I do not personally found a way to fit the skills in the build. I know it's possible, but it's kind of bad, you know, and it will not work as smooth as with this setup. Now for the passive, four passives here, I like the basic setup that is smooth and easy to play. Grave Injustice reduces all our cooldowns by 1% when the enemy dies, and we gain 1% of our life and mana when everything dies. And we can chain kill trash mobs and basically never die and recover really fast inside of the packs. This is very good, you know, kind of smoothness skill that is kind of very smooth. And a lot of people run with this because they are kind of, you know, able to chain kill trash really fast. Another skill that is kind of adds smoothness to the gameplay is Creeping Death. This is just, you know, quality of life passive. When you cast Pestilence once and you cast Hound once on the enemy, it basically never expires. It expires for 16 minutes instead of 12 seconds, and basically you don't want to recast it over and over again, spend mana, spend time. This is like, you know, quality of life that increases the smoothness and allows you to concentrate just on casting Spirit Barrage and do concrete 100% straightforward damage. I'm not a very big fan of Creeping Death because, you know, I like something else instead, but this is a very smooth gameplay. Spirit Vessel is mandatory for the lower level characters that are, you know, kind of fragile and die over and over again. This is your second life, and I do not recommend to remove it for damage unless you are an exceptionally strong player. Rush of Essence solves all problems with the mana, obviously. You know, there can be some problems when you cast a lot of stuff here with Spirit Barrage. This is obviously like a pretty hungry skill. 100 mana is no fucking joke at all. And Rush of Essence basically, you know, kind of saves all mana problems. It's pretty... You know, when you drop this, you immediately notice that it's not as smooth. Also, you drop your Kill Cuirass bonus over and over again, and you can eventually die a bit. So, Rush of Essence is like another layer of smoothness on your gameplay. Now, what passive can we get? What are the useful passives can we get from this? First of all, on the amulet I have the Jungle Fortitude. When we do poison damage, we reduce our damage taken by 15%. This is like a small debuff that we automatically get or from the enemies when we cast the poison damage. This is cool. No, it can be also the bad medicine. Oh, sorry, I messed with the bad medicine. Yeah. So jungle fortitude just reduces the damage by 50% by default, and bad medicine reduces the damage by 25% when we deal poison enemy. So this is a debuff, and this is the default 15% damage reduced. So I have the default 50% reduced and damage. This is a great passive, one of the best. Again, it's like, you know, a little small cloud of insects that I have on me all the time. It's not bad at all. Now this is all the passive that allow you to survive better. But what about the passive that give you more damage? Now, instead of creeping death and gravy justice, I often use Gruesome Fist. Gruesome Fist is fucking insane damage boost, one of the best that you can get in this game. When you get the globe, you increase your intelligence by 10%. When you get 5 globes, you basically get 50% of more damage on top of your damage. This is ridiculous amount of damage, guys. Ridiculous amount of damage. And this is recommended when you speed farm and you level like low gems, and when you don't die much, you can drop either Grave Injustice or Creeping Death, like only these two. Also, you can try and drop Spirit Vessel as well. If you're like tough enough and you only need damage, you can try and drop Spirit Vessel as well. Another fantastic passive for damage is Confidence Ritual. This is a global multiplier. 25% multiplied damage when you're close within 20 yards of the enemies. All your damage is multiplied by 25%. This is one of the best passive damage multipliers for Witch Doctor in the game. And this is exceptionally strong. Another useful passive is Pierce the Veil. This is basically increases your mana cost by 20% but gives you more damage by default, like this. I get a fucking ton of damage here. But personally, like, I do not really recommend this much because you can have a little mana problems here instead. And you can drop your Killer's Kiras here. And this is only recommended like when you actually can maintain your mana. When you have no problems maintaining your mana, you can try this as well. This is probably will be more fishy and more no death. You will die much more as well, but it's absolutely viable as well. Another interesting passive is the Swarm Lambertuna, that will give you basically more toughness, especially when you have huge packs like from all sides of you. You're inside this fucking pack and you are basically like immortal. You get ridiculous amount of resistances and tankiness. This is also one of the most fantastic, you know, survival boosts for density. Everything else like is not entirely important. No, tribal rights is not very good, but Phil Sloyd is pretty decent for movement, by the way. Like on the very low levels, it's not bad. It's basically the mobility, guys. Now for the legendary gems, a few things to speak about the legendary gems. First of all, mandatory Bane of the Stricken. It's fucking mandatory. No, I tried to kill Reef Guardian without Bane of the Stricken and it took around like 4 minutes. Not recommended, guys. Even on the lower levels, like no, starting from the 80, it's like fucking mandatory. Everything below 80, you can try this. You can try like Bane of the Powerful, but I absolutely do not recommend. You know, striking out damages every gem in the game with just 20 stacks. 20-25 stacks and every other gem is out damaged in the game. So this is mandatory. Also 25% damage increase against the bosses and Reef Guardians. This is very strong. Another good gem is the Enforcer. Basically this is a global pet multiplier of damage, and this is multiplies damage of all our Spirit Barrage. And this is the only gem that can be switched to something else actually. Third gem that is mandatory is the Bane of the Trap. We always control mobs with the Hound, the Poison Spirit, and The Pyranado and the Locust Swarm, they are basically slowed all the time. So we proc into the trap non-stop, basically. Non-stop, guys. So this is very, very mandatory gem. Now, the only gem that can be potentially switched to something is the Enforcer. And it can be switched to a couple of things. First of all, it's the esoteric alteration. Like, if you feel like you're very, very fragile, you die over and over and over again, you die like completely like repetitive, you can just switch Enforcer to esoteric alteration. You immediately will double your toughness. Like, if you have 100 million, you will get 200 million, and it will be like very noticeable inside the rift, very noticeable. And the second DPS option that is quite interesting is the Pain Enhancer, guys. The Pain Enhancer is fucking fantastic as well. And in my opinion, Pain Enhancer is like the rival of Enforcer. I mean, Enforcer is a cheap pet multiplier that just multiplies damage by default. But for Enforcer, you need to work a bit, you need to cast, you need to get the density. But when you get this, you will get ridiculous amount of attack speed, and you will get much more recovery because you will cast Spirit Barrage faster, and explosions from the phlebotomized will expire faster and all that shit. And I personally think that this might be the future for the build instead of Enforcer gem. Now this is it, guys. Now why I have the mimics here? First thing that I want to say is that my old Juicy Fire build died solely for the reason that the pets were nerfed and they do not work with the Ring of Emptiness. Before Season 7 started, we used to play Gargantuans. People play Gargantuans with the Ring of Emptiness, and Gargantuans were buffed by the Ring of Emptiness. But it was so fucking powerful that Blizzard came with a ban hammer and with a nerf hammer and basically nerfed the shit to the ground. And the Ring of Emptiness doesn't work with the pets ever since. But Phantasm is a fucking exclusion. It's like, it's the only pet that is not a pet that works with the Ring of Emptiness. That's kind of retarded. And even though mimics do not benefit from the Ring of Emptiness, the Ring of Emptiness does not buff the mimics damage, but still mimics cast off your skills and they cast your default Spirit Barrage. So overall, I think they do around 100% of your damage. And once they're free of them, I noticed that when they hit the single target, I noticed that spikes of damage. So basically, they are the valuable source of damage in the Rift. And I noticed that. Like, when I ran with the Lyrics Crown, there were no spikes of damage. When I switched to the Green Reaper, I noticed that it helps me against single target somewhat. So I think that they might add a bit of damage to my own, and they actually help. Not only that, but they also provide additional control of the mobs because they also cast Pyronados on top of them. And it's also very important because when they cast Pyronados on the mobs, basically I do not need to cast Pyronados on the mobs. They are already controlled and I can concentrate on more Spirit Barrage casting. This is it, guys. So with mimics or without mimics, it's up to you, but I prefer to play with mimics for now, and I think that this is quite interesting gameplay and I recommend playing with this. So this is it for the guide, guys. I think I explained pretty much everything to you. The Templar setup is absolutely like default. I have the Legacy Oculus Ring here with the double attack speed and the normal Oculus Ring here, attack speed everywhere, so they could now proc stun on this like crazy. So this is it, guys, and I think that this build has quite a potential because at first I thought that it's around the Helltooth damage of the Helltooth, but then on the top end it kind of surpasses Helltooth and it just grows stronger as you progress. On the 80s it's pretty much slow and as good as Helltooth, but on the 90 it's already stronger than Helltooth in my opinion. And a lot of people there, they did the hundreds over there. And my friend did 96 here. He's here. Yeah, he did 96 here with a 2400 Paragon and pretty much the same setup. And the rank 1, look, let me check what is this. Yeah, this is it. Rank 1 with the 4000 Paragons. It's 105, so people are kind of started using this build. You see what he augmented here. He augmented intelligence here, but he might have invested some Paragon in vitality. See, this is the legacy Frostburns, by the way. So this is it. Also the Enforcer. So this build has potential, guys, and it's pretty fun to play. And a bit later on I will explain you the fire spec for the build. Fire potentially gives more damage, but it's a little harder to play because it's left toughness, but it's very, very interesting as well. Thanks for watching, guys, and see you soon on the next adventures. And let you guys watch that clear of Great Rift that I will demonstrate you at the end of the video.